This lecture is going to look at the models of representation that go in particular to the Congress and the legislative branch. The first model of representation is called the delegate model. And the delegate model is when representatives do exactly what their constituents want them to do. In a case where something may come up, whether it be a budget deal or a decision to send troops somewhere or a change that might be made to healthcare, in the delegate model, the representative, whether that be the Senate or the House, is going to act solely in the interest of what the citizens want. Typically, we think of the delegate model attaching or applying to the House of Representatives a lot more than the Senate. This is done for a number of reasons. Most notably, it is done because the House of Representatives, the entire House is elected every 2 years. With that being said, the House of Representatives is designed to be more closely tied to the citizens and much more responsive to the citizens. The House was designed in this way. That's why there's 435 of them. That's why there's a ratio of one citizen or one representative per roughly 600,000 citizens. And the House of Representatives typically embodies the idea of the delegate model the best. The other area that this applies is the fact that the representatives, because there's so many of them, are oftentimes going to be known as policy specialists. There's not going to be a chance for a representative to serve in 10 different committees or 5 different committees. Typically, because of the amount of people in the House of Representatives, they are only going to serve on 1 or 2 committees and focus on 1 or 2 very specific policy areas. So when something comes up that's outside of their policy area, they're going to be much more inclined to defer their decision to the citizens rather than looking at that decision and balancing it on their own wishes. So because of the idea that elections are going to be held every 2 years, and because the representatives are known as policy specialists, the House of Representatives is seen much more likely to be in the delegate model. The second model is called the trustee model, and the trustee model is where representatives are entrusted to make the best decision. This is an area that typically applies to the Senate. If you're going to look at the way that representation is done, they're going to say that the Senate is oftentimes more a senator is typically making the decision on their own rather than being specifically tied to the decision of the people. As previously stated, the Senate was designed to represent the state. The Senate was not designed to represent the individual citizen. Over time, that has changed because we now directly elect our senator, as outlined in the 17th Amendment. But according to the original design, the Senate was supposed to represent the state. And the senator is only elected once every 6 years. So instead of having to constantly think about re-election, a senator is going to be focused much more on the decisions that they're going to make and the impact that those could have. So a senator is not just going to listen to what the people want. They're going to be much more inclined to make their own decisions based on their own beliefs and their own knowledge of a situation. The other thing with the Senate is they are known as policy generalists, which means that they are going to serve on several different types of committees, and they're going to focus on much more of a broader range of topics for policy making than, say, a member of the House of Representatives. So they're going to have much more knowledge about a much more diverse group of policy initiatives. So they're going to be more likely to put their individual kind of spin on a policy, but also on their own representation. The last model of representation is known as the Politico model. And the Politico model is probably more realistic in today's world for both House and Senate. And the Politico model just simply says that a representative is going to balance the wishes of the constituent as well as their own personal decision making. Even in the House of Representatives, as you will find, very rarely do we have turnover. Very rarely is somebody going to be unelected to a second or third or fourth, or in some cases a 10th or 20th term, whatever. So as someone gets kind of more ingrained in the way that the Congress operates, a representative is much more likely going to follow this model very early on until they have a name and a consistent voting record. They're going to be more likely to be more responsive to the individual constituents and what their needs are. But I think overall, this is probably the more accurate model in terms of representation. If an issue were to come up today, and let's say that there was going to be a bill about abortion, maybe outlawing it past the first trimester, whatever, federal law, that's going to come down to two things. You have some representatives in Kentucky who are liberal. You have some representatives that are Democrats, and obviously the state is going to have a likelihood of being much more conservative, being Kentucky, and a little bit more pro-life. So that individual congressman, whether that be a representative or senator, is not only going to have to vote with their individual intent. Hey, this is what I believe. I believe that abortion should be legal. I believe that it should be accessible, whatever. But they also have to balance out the need of the individual citizen. And what oftentimes they will do is they will open up their phone banks. In fact, I've had a few students that have done this for certain congressmen, both of which have worked. One has worked for Jim Jordan, who was rumored to have been the Speaker of the House, and the other one worked as an intern for Mitch McConnell down in Louisville when he was going to college there. And what they will literally do is they will sit on the phone, and when people call in, they'll put a tally mark yes or no for a certain bill. So if they'll say at the end of the day we got 50 yeses and 10 nos, they'll relay that information to the congressman, and they will know what their beliefs are and what the citizens and the constituents really want. So the Politico model is much more accurate in terms of the everyday running of representation. And with this, you're going to see the balancing of the individual wishes of the constituents, but also the own decision making of the congressman and their own beliefs and morals and the decisions that they make as well. That is all for this lecture. If you have any questions about this, please be sure to write those down, and I'd be more than happy to answer those in a meeting, or if you send me a message or anything. This is an excellent topic for some essays. There's a lot of things that could tie into this. We aren't necessarily going to have one, but this is the type of thing that you see at the end of the year that could be an application to certain content. So definitely something you want to pay attention to moving forward.